when you control your mind, it's not just control, it's know your mind and understand what it means to be a human, to have a human brain, you can then work with it much, much better.
So welcome, Mar, to Owning Your Legacy. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here, and this is just a pleasure already, so thanks.
So I would love you to start with your story and how you got to be at BIÂN and how that all transpired.
Sure. I love talking about this story because I think it's a confluence of everything in my life coming together and forming what is now feeling like a very natural, organic place that I'm supposed to be, with its challenges, of course. But, starting back with, I was a creative in high school, creative-ish in college, but started to kind of branch out more into sociological sorts of focuses for education. But I always loved people and trying to understand things on a deeper level. My mom was very spiritual, so I always had that as a common theme. So really, as I went through school, I went to UCLA, I was out in California, so that was a really fun place to see how a culture and people interacted in a very specific setting. So I just enjoyed studying people. I then graduated and, wanting to stay in California and not come home yet, decided to get into finance so I could afford it. So I got out of the entertainment industry. I was thinking I'd be on film or do production and that sort of work. But I fell in love with the finance industry because it was a challenge. And that was a really important phase in my life because it was the most demanding on me. It wasn't my strongest suit, but having a work ethic, it was the most fun for me to really take a challenge and learn how to make it very useful for my life. And so my finance years were super challenging, but enriching. It's where I met my now husband. So many, pathways as you reflect really started to make sense over the years that came together, and particularly where I am now. But I started practicing yoga during finance years to keep the stress down. And I'll never forget walking into that first class. I was at the gym in Santa Monica, walked past it once, and I couldn't believe how many people were in there. And it just had this vibe. It was an energetic thing. So I made a point to go back. It was Wednesday nights. I went back, and I'll never forget sitting there and being completely transformed by the experience. So it became a lifeline, and I saw how important it was that I came back to that while going through a very challenging time as a young professional trying to figure out who I was in this world. So I took that and started to kind of run with wellness. I started getting a little deeper into it, had a health challenge. So I started looking at everything. So it was nutrition, it was how I exercised, it was really kind of bringing that deep look the way I did in my studies in sociology and even just the culture being in LA. I started taking that approach with wellness. And I had a few people in my life that it was a roommate of mine from college. Her dad was a professor and still is at Berkeley doing naturopathy, nutrition studies, holistic living. And so I started getting introduced to that. And being in LA, it's very common to dabble in these things. So I was having a lot of fun, became raw vegan, started doing triathlons on this raw vegan diet, and long story short, healed myself from a nut allergy and a few other things. It was amazing.
Wow.
So I really believed it. And then I moved back to Chicago with a different financial job, and it was significantly more challenging. And it hit a point where the positives were starting to wear, and I knew it wasn't something that I was fully meant for, but I loved the challenge of it. So I took I wouldn't have ever done it if it weren't for my now husband saying, and my boyfriend at the time saying, this is not 100% you, and it's starting to kind of eat away at you. And so for him to see that, was really
Before
meaningful.
you even saw it, sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, and I was the type where I would push through. I would make it work. That was how I was raised. That's what has gotten me very far in life, is that I can push through and go. But I have now since learned how to use that only in really important settings, and also at the same time take care of my needs and make sure that what I'm doing makes sense.
Right.
And that's actually what I coach on a lot, is understanding why you do what you do and having really good reasons why you do it. So left finance, went to Asia for 2.5 months, went to a yoga retreat. Half of the day was silent.
Wow.
It was incredible. It was the best.
It's kind of an eat,
healing.
pray, love moment.
It was, but I wasn't single. But
Yeah.
it's okay.
You didn't get the cute guy at the
Did
end.
not, but I walked around and went to Nepal on a whim. Thailand, Nepal was the most enriching, but it was a very important moment. And I came back with this union of wellness meets the corporate world. How can I bridge the two together? And this is before it was really huge, which it is now, and super important. And post COVID, a lot of companies and people became believers around things that, formerly were seen as woo-woo.
Yeah.
So that became my niche. It became my superpower. It was to go into these settings, work with these high-powered individuals, and teach them these ways that were caring, wellness, taking care of themselves. You can still be stressed out. You can still be a high performer and do these things. So that was where I started to make a name for myself.
Right.
The coaching, my, again, now husband, his name is Rob. I should probably just say his name. So Rob, my husband, one of my partners is Rob, so I always differentiate. But
Rob 1 and Rob 2.
Rob number 1, he gifted me life coaching during that process. And so that was so important for me to sift through everything from upbringing and who you are, who you think you are, who you're not. And that was the missing puzzle piece. And that's when I saw all of it coming together.
So he gifted you a coach to go through
He gifted me a coach.
That's a great gift.
He was on the plane and just struck up conversation with this woman, told her what I was doing. I was over in Asia, and she's like, I would love to work with her.
Nice.
And so that kicked it off. And by session 4, I said, this is going to be a part of what I do.
Is that, and I, read up on you and did some research, and there was a point you said where you knew it was a calling or your calling.
Yes.
Did that kind of happen during the coaching? Do you feel like that was when the light switch went off?
No. It was a part of it. And I say that because I think it's really important that for two big reasons. Sometimes you have that huge aha moment, kind of like when in the Disney movies, like it was this belief that you're only in love when you feel this certain way. And mine were silent, small things that built over time. And I just paid attention. And I kept paying attention to them, and I was putting them together, and I was trying to make sense of it. And so it was a part of it. And so I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like. And I don't think I ever did, which I think worked to my benefit because I let flow and ease come in, which is where that yoga was showing up. I was letting things come together rather than forcing it like I was really good at doing. And so, continuing, I come back from Asia, I let all of this come together, but knew very quickly that I couldn't make it a hard, rigid need. I never wanted to approach clients from that place. I never wanted the yoga to take that shape for me. And so I had like 5 different jobs. So I used my work ethic to my advantage, knowing that this wellness coaching part will take shape in due time. So I had these consistent streams of income, and then started there and just let the two work its way together.
That's cool. And I think that's really important when you say flow in the coaching and even the yoga, because as a client, I can imagine being kind of scared, and to be able to hold that space for your clients and not judgmental. I think that's got to be a huge draw to you. That it's like a safe sanctuary.
Coaching 100% is about that. The coaching is about bringing out something in someone else. It has nothing to do with me. It's 100% that person and how I can guide the path. How can I at least give them the space to walk the path, the ideas, but how it takes shape and how they take to it is just such a individualized experience. Yeah. And what's funny is as I talk through all of this is seen in how we put BIÂN together and how I continue to shape the teams and the ethos. And as we look to other markets, that's what it's about. We don't preach one thing. I've never taught one thing in coaching. I never taught one thing in yoga either. It was always, what can I provide as a platform for you to take off this offering and make your own that works for you?
I feel like I hear your mom.
Probably.
Like it sounds very spiritual of what can I give of service and have people take. So that's pretty cool.
Definitely.
And I would love you to describe how BIÂN came to be, because you're kind of right there, I think, in your story.
So BIÂN came to be through a series of relationships, but also it was an idea that was in my head in one form, and it was in the three individuals I'll get to in a second in their form. So I was coaching, I was teaching yoga, I was at studios, I was private, I was working in corporate settings. It was just this big fun hodgepodge, which was just great. Lots of experience. And Kevin Boehm, who's well known in Chicago, he's a restaurateur, Boca Restaurant Group, one of the co-founders. He had taken a class of mine, I guess, at some point, and just kind of knew who I was. I had met him maybe once. I remember walking out of the studio, going to one of his restaurants and like shaking his hand. And I got a message on Instagram one day from him, and he said, "My back, I'm in excruciating pain. Can you help me?" So I said, "Yes. When do you want to meet?" He's like, "Right now." And I said, "Okay." It actually works. It was like 3:00 on an afternoon. So he came over. I had a little studio in my house. Usually I would travel to people, but I had him come over, moved him around a little bit, tried to understand what was happening, and he felt a lot better. And so right then and there, he said, "Hey, I want to do this, and I want to do this.
I'm a believer.
2 times a week forever." So we started working together quite a bit. He would start coming to my classes, and I think when you meet him and get to know him, he just has this good sense of people, and he was able to see something in me that, looking back today, and I'll get to this, but I don't think he knew what I was capable and what I have done up until this point, but I didn't quite know that yet.
Yeah.
But he saw that, and so it was very amazing. He then became a good client. It was probably a year and a half later. He said, "I've been thinking about this idea of private club meets wellness." And I was like, "That's interesting. I think that could work." I've thought about, my ethos of wellness not being too woo-woo, but how do you get the beauty and the depth and the healing of the woo-woo stuff and bring it to more of the mainstream in a way that has high integrity, when wellness is kind of having a moment where it's everywhere, which is amazing that it's accessible, but it's also kind of lost some of its true ties as it's taken different forms. I said, "Yes, I've thought about that, like people bringing this, and him and I are similar in that way." And I remember us sitting there on the floor, which should have been his session. I was like, "What if we did this? And what if we did that?" He goes, "I'm going to introduce you to my friend, Joe Fisher. I grew up with him. He's a lawyer. He's been dabbling in holistic work. He's been healing his family with Chinese herbs and all this stuff." And I was like, "Great." I was seeing an acupuncturist 3 times a week. I was trying to get pregnant at that time. I met with Joe, and him and I spoke for what was supposed to be like 30 minutes. We spoke for 2.5 hours. And it just was on from there. He goes, "Okay, we're doing this." And
visionary. It sounds like all 3 of you are visionary.
We are. And then there's a 4th. There's Robbie Leone, which is their other friend from college, who is like the fitness social guy. And so all of us had the puzzle pieces to make something like this work. And those puzzle pieces work so beautifully together to this day. It's the most amazing partnership. And so that's how this started.
Yeah, and I think for our listeners, kind of describe what services and what you can get at BIAN.
Yes.
Just to be, so they get it, because it's amazing. I've only been there once, but I definitely want to check out more of it. But I love the fact that it's so all in one place, like the time in our lives. And I'm sure that probably was part of your vision of what corporates need.
Yes.
The fact that you can do a one-stop kind of shop is what I find really intriguing. So let you describe it a little more.
The one-stop shop is 100% true. I don't think we led with that enough in the beginning. We were so focused on, because what we are is we're a private club for what? It's wellness, work, and community. That's where we've landed, because each of those components is what we serve. And so bringing all of what someone needs and wants to do that contributes to their well-being. And we've chosen the things that are more tried and true, have a lot of time and science behind them. Mm-hmm. So when you come into BIAN, it's over 35,000 square feet. So we had a 10,000 addition this past June. But you come in, it's a beautiful restaurant. So you obviously see Kevin's presence right there when you walk in. It's a lounge, it's a restaurant, there's sushi there, there's everything there. Great food. You then start wandering the halls and you run into a listening room, which is all vinyl music, Macintosh sound system. We have over 2,000 records.
That's cute.
Music
I did
is
not know
healing.
that one. That is adorable.
Yes.
I just got a record player for Christmas.
Did
and
you?
I love it.
Yes. It's coming back.
It's totally coming back.
It's coming back. And music is a huge connector.
It's my love language.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And so you
my kids and I shared
it.
songs, like with each other. And that's like such a sweet way to communicate.
It is. And people are communicating through music at the club, just listening together, having dinners together. We do themed dinners in there. And then you have a studio. So we essentially can replace all of these things. We can replace your studio. We have a fitness center for open gym, also for classes. I have a reformer Pilates studio, a second studio for strength work. I have about 23 classes a day that we offer between bar, yoga, strength classes, mat Pilates, sound meditation, guided meditation, specialty series, breath work, dance, you name it.
Wow.
I've kept it streamlined, but wide enough that we can capture whatever
anything
you look
want,
for.
right, and learn something new at the same time.
Definitely. And I'll get to the kind of raising the standard of who we had in those rooms leading the classes. So, that's like the fitness and studio part. And then you get to kind of, if I'm walking you through mentally, there's the co-working space, which is brand new. So this is state-of-the-art open space for co-working, small group meetings, bigger conference rooms. We have 2 of them. So corporations are now coming in and they are able to have, say they're kind of partly remote, they're able to come in, have a different setting, have a space that is not only enjoyable, but also can lend itself to so many other things. Mm-hmm. You have
And then you can go do a class together.
We do that all the time.
Absolutely bonding. We've done, our leadership team has gone to Tahoe one time, which was beautiful.
Yeah.
And we ended up having a really amazing yoga instructor came and we did that together. But that's great bonding.
It's bonding. It's bringing back what I think people now are craving more of, which is that connection together. You're with people that you work with quite a bit. So we call them wellness days, and they'll come in, they'll have their meeting, they'll have a great lunch and, any order you can think of, but then they'll go to a guided meditation or a sound meditation. They'll break out into our spa, which I'll get to,
massages.
Or a big talk, right? Yeah. Like we have 15 directors, all of which are wellness experts. Some of them are doctors that have the ability to coach and teach on a range of topics, from leadership to parenting to stress, sleep, you name it, Ayurveda, mental health. And so all of that can become the corporate programming. So we do that both in-house, and we have a full program now where we're going outside and offering this to different companies. So
that's a great idea.
That's really the big corporate kind of push. And then the rest of the club, full spa, full beauty offering, facials, aesthetics, all of that. We have an IV spot, so you can get IVs during the day, vitamin B12 shots.
Oh, look at that.
Yes. And that's
I've never had an IV, but I've definitely done the B12, and
it feels
I'm
good.
a believer.
You feel a lot better. really quickly.
So what's the IV? Is it for hydration, I would imagine? Or
There's a range of reasons why you would get it. It could be hydration. We have one that's called Power Glow. So it brings like more nutrition, hydration to the skin like biotin, all of those sorts of vitamins and minerals. Nausea, if you're coming off of a long trip, we do a lot of IVs for kind of rejuvenating energy. Seasonal allergies are a big one. And then, and that is all actually inside of our concierge medical clinic. So we have a full arm of concierge medicine.
I was going to ask you about that because you hear the word concierge medical a lot, but I don't think I fully get what that even means. So I'd love to hear more about that.
A lot of doctors, and our doctor, she was at one of the most prestigious hospitals around here. They want to go into practicing medicine back to how I think a lot of them envisioned it to be, more personalized.
Time with your patient
and a deeper way to care for them. So it's a model that it's cash based. So it's one fee, and you have essentially your own private doctor. So it's 24/7 access. You can text her for anything. You get a full annual comprehensive physical. You walk over there. It's beautiful. She has all the time in the world to spend with you.
How calming.
It's amazing.
That sounds amazing.
It changes everything.
Like walking into a hospital
It's different. It's different. And obviously there's a huge, the medical system is so important in our world, but this way of being able to take care of yourself, which is what we saw happening, was people haven't gone to the doctor because it's too inconvenient.
Right.
They haven't gone. They let the
and
things
it's not calm and
grow.
Like, this sounds beautiful. Like I picture like couches and cozy or
it's
something.
Beautiful.
You're not walking into like a sterile.
No, you want to be there.
Right.
And you no longer ignore the little signs or the little symptoms that you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to make an appointment about that.
Right.
You can text her. You can get it addressed. We do a lot of female executive health. We have pelvic floor therapy, internal, external, corrective exercise, like anything you can think of, we have been able to address through that lens. And then that ties into the Eastern medicine clinic. So we have acupuncture, herbs, energetics, all downstairs with one of the most amazing providers in her team. The two work together. And then you have naturopathy, nutrition, mental health, coaching, Ayurveda. It all just comes together.
That's a beautiful vision.
Massages too.
Oh, yeah.
Massages is medicine.
Yes, it is. It definitely is.
Yes.
How often do you recommend people get those?
It depends.
And how your stress level, I'm sure. It's always in my neck.
Weekly will change your life. Weekly will change your life. And we priced everything to make sense so that you can actually make it a part of your daily or weekly, monthly routine. So it's the same level as some of the nicest spas in the world, if not better.
I'm so sold.
A little less.
I wish I was down here more often because
I know.
I'm down here enough though to definitely.
Yes.
And I could see for sure with my team that this would be really some cool stuff we could do.
It's a special place. We can address everything that someone needs to feel better, sleep better, live better, lead better. And that's what BIAN does, is we serve this community. We have about 1,000 members, all of which, the way I see it, is we're able to support this group that then is going out into the world and working with their families, working with their clients, working with their employees, their teams, their neighbors, their community in a better, more healthier way. And that's the impact that we can have to make a bigger change. And that's really important to me.
Vital life is what I think I read.
Live a vital life.
Is your mission I like that a lot. Because that's a great word, vital,
It resonates with everyone in their own way.
Right.
Some members like to sit in the lounge because it makes them feel healthier. They may not engage in much else than maybe having one healthier meal a day
and
or a week.
And the community of it is probably a big part of making them feel better. I mean, that's just the connection. And so what do you see as the trends in corporate worlds as far as, what's important to make our organizations more well? Is that a word? More well?
More well. Yeah. Healthier, happier.
Yeah.
I mean, they're big terms. And I think they're terms that have been thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
The term connection is having a big moment post-COVID. But I would say the trends are deepening connection on a level that there's substance to it. And there's a joke that you can't really walk around BIÂN without having very deep conversations everywhere you turn. It's a different space. And so that's what we're able to provide for people. And so corporate, companies, teams, they can come in, our members can come in. We have social programming and educational programming that is complementary, where the 15 leaders that I mentioned in each of these departments are talking about things from relationships to, I just did a topic on goals and, how to embrace micro goals. We just talked about this hormone test that we're offering, demystifying injectables, talking about how to relate better to your teams.
No one really does talk about menopause.
And we do a ton of menopause talks.
That's good, because it's like a mystery to all of us. I think that's fantastic.
Yes.
And aging parents
and going through life transitions is kind of how we frame that area is, when your kids leave or you have a very stressful experience going on in your life, we have these spaces for people to come together and in a safe community that is private.
I mean, just sharing is half of it with somebody that's going through it. One of the things I was reading about that I think you had talked at a podcast or something about play. So there was like these 5 trends, and one of them was that we don't play enough, and I loved that.
Play for corporations is funny because some new businesses are great at it.
Yeah.
And then there's the old finance world and law and big law particularly, where it's not celebrated, but there's many ways to play. And so that's also what we tried to show, is that there's many ways to do these things.
Yeah.
So play can look like, okay, we're going to do a sound meditation together. That's better than going to a bar and doing, if you don't want to do that every time you get together.
And you had, I think you had said like dress up, karaoke. That's hysterical.
Karaoke is so fun if you have a group that is willing to do it. Yeah. Or, sometimes the rocky voices are the funniest.
That's so true. That is so true. But I really liked that. I think that's, it is kind of lost as we get older. We forget how to play.
I mean, even play could be walking in an experimental way. Play could be, you have to disassociate with play any sort of outcome. And so that's where people, I think play has to be silly.
Right.
It can be, but it also could just be.
Maybe it's not having an outcome, right? Yeah, just being.
It's just being. It's just walking. Look at the leaf. Look at it blow.
We always have to have goals and hit results, and it's like, can we just be for a minute and not have to? I love that.
Yeah.
So you also talk about mindset, and you can heal your own self. So dig into that a little bit about. And I loved owning your mindset. I'm like, owning your legacy, owning your mindset. There's a connection.
Go. Yes. Mindset work is what the foundation is for my executive coaching, life coaching, however you want to term it. It's all pretty much the same philosophy. How I express it to the said individual or group is just dependent on what's being presented to me. So mindset is like the common theme. That is the most powerful tool that we have in our life. It is the most available tool. And this is for the well individual who can. Obviously, there is such a need for psychotherapy, psychology to heal parts that can get you to this place, because mindset, when you control your mind, it's not just control, it's know your mind and understand what it means to be a human, to have a human brain, you can then work with it much, much better. It is something that we have complete ownership over to an extent as human beings. That's the difference between us and animals. So and this moves you away from thinking of circumstances dictating moods and decisions, playing out storytelling, which our mind is beautiful at doing. It will find the wolf running and chasing after you, or the bear, because that's our primal brain. It's doing its job. And so there's nothing wrong with that, but you actually have an opportunity to work with that and say, this isn't actually a bear after me. This is just a challenging moment. What am I going to do with this challenging moment? And so then mindset blends with belief systems. What's my relationship with challenge? What is my relationship with something that is resisting me, or that I'm resisting, or pain or change, or anything that you can say that we experience in this human life? What's your relationship with it? And so that's really a belief system layer of the coaching, that paired with mindset, you then get to rewrite the narrative of your life.
I love that.
So I can talk about this all day in so many ways, shapes, and forms. I love it.
One takeaway I got listening to you on a podcast was have a conversation with that voice in your mind. And I'm like, that's beautiful. You really, and it was, you were saying, don't resist it, and just have a conversation and talk to it. And
it's your friend.
It's your friend. And,
even if you don't like it very much. And I have a few clients right now where we're deep in this, and you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. Lead with curiosity. What is it saying? It's saying something for a reason. And where the tendency to shove it down and try to move away from it and resist it, it only comes back stronger. And it might be next week, and it might be in 20 years. And so trying to get to know it is a really important part.
Yeah. And I think of manifesting when you're talking about mindset too, a little bit of, the people in your life that sometimes you want to distance yourself from because they're so negative, and back to the narrative and the stories and victim. The word victim is coming into my mind, of that you can't change their mindset, and they're going to always be that victim. And I do believe that is part of well-being and health. If you're going to believe that, it gets in our bodies or something. I know you know better than I do, but I'm a believer.
It does. One of the hard parts for people going through work of this sort is that they then want everyone to do it. And it's incredibly hard work, and you have to be willing to do it. And so the only and best way to have impact or influence, say it's your spouse or your child or your boss that you just wish was different, the best way is to just live the path. Eventually, maybe someone says, what are you doing? Like, how are you not so bothered by this anymore? What happened? You're different. You've changed. And that's when you can share the truths of it. But where this can go sour is when they're like, well, you need to think this way. And it's like, you then try to control the weather.
It goes back to your flow.
Yes.
You can't force anyone to follow your beliefs, and
but you can see it differently in them.
Yeah.
So when it's happening to you and you're around that negative person, I totally agree with structuring your life that if you choose to be with them, great. And there's a saying that I love to say, and my other co-founder Joe loves to say, which is change your perspective or change your circumstance if you can. Right. And so perspective changing is usually the most common and easiest thing to do.
You can have empathy for them. Yeah, definitely.
You can.
Sometimes you're like, it's their wounds or their,
whatever it is, it's real for them. And I use this example all the time. I'm like, if I tell you 1 + 1 = 10, you can fight with me all day long, but if I fully believe it, even though it's mathematically impossible, it's something I believe. So why spend energy, frustration, time on trying to change that? And if you take that example with anything, it's like, there's nothing I could do about that, but I can control, and I am responsible for my thoughts, my feelings, my expectations, how I go about this exchange. And I could say, okay, how interesting that you think 1 + 1 = 10. Fascinating. I'm going to move on now.
Yeah. Was there ever a point in your life that you felt you were living somebody else's standards, values, or ideals that you had a...
Oddly, no. Which is really funny. Maybe like a glimpse at one point, but I think that's why this comes so naturally for me. And that is where calling kind of does show up. I've always been on my own path. It's a joke. When I was like 10, I thought I was 21. Didn't understand that I was only 10. I've always had this way of thinking. Yeah. It's different. And I've been very good at not being able to be fit into a box. And part of that could be I had a rough like 10 to 13. A
Yeah.
lot of different things that I think at this point have become really ugly gifts. Do I wish those things happened? No, but they did. And that has been useful at this point. That, I think has always allowed for me to never take on a shape that didn't make sense. I always had a decent idea of where I was going, even if it wasn't.
Those were rough
clear.
years, really. I mean, I think that is kind
Yeah,
of when we come into our own, and mean girl stuff can happen then. And it's,
totally.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go back to high school. I'd go back to college any day.
Yeah. Yes. College, great.
Yeah, the college was great fun.
Yes.
So, what do you see as the future for BIÂN? Where do you guys want to take it? I could see a franchise in my mind.
We're growing.
Yeah.
We're going places. It's been a fun particularly the last year. A lot of great opportunities have come up. We still are the global leader in this construct. There is no one else like us.
I've never
that
heard
does
anything
this.
like it. I think it's really unique and obviously is bringing value to people because you're growing.
It is, and it's changing lives. We see it every day, the stories, the feedback we get. So we'll be in other markets. They'll be in exciting markets. We'll probably take different shapes here and there. But right now we're really focused on being the best we possibly can in this first flagship, and then what number 2, which is right around the corner, looks like. Will be,
And you
soon
can't
to
reveal
tell.
that, can you? Probably
Not at
yet.
this stage. Not yet.
That's got to be exciting, though.
It's been fun going through these exercises. So soon.
So I would love to know, for the last question, which you know is coming, but what is the legacy that you would like to leave behind?
I've thought about this question a lot since I knew it was coming. And the answer that keeps coming up, I keep searching for this more eloquent answer, but the answer that keeps showing up for this is the legacy I want to leave behind is that I just deeply, deeply cared about everything. And that all that I do and the way that I am, and it all is because I care. I really give a what.
You can say it.
You know what? I give a shit.
That's
and
beautiful.
that is what I want to say is that I really
like
give a
it.
shit, and she really gave a shit about it all. And so that truly that's my answer to that right
I
now.
like it.
Yeah.
And you're definitely a trailblazer. That comes into my mind a lot with just talking to you. And I mean, all of you are. I think all of you founders together are trailblazers of and enriching lives. That's our Edlong mission, funny enough, that I love, enrich the lives of those we touch. And I love it because it's so true and it's a give a shit kind of thing. And and it's easy to do. I mean, you can be like, I just touched someone's life by the wellness, the play, all the stuff that you guys are doing at BIÂN is very
even
impactful.
presence with people. It can do much more than it doesn't have to be grand. The small things.
Yes.
That's what I love about us is it could be the simplest things that make a huge difference.
For our listeners, where can they find more about you and BIÂN?
So our website is livebian, LIVEBIAN.com. Social media is at livebian, and those are the best 2 places where all of our resources are.
Awesome.
Yes.
Sounds good. And you're probably on LinkedIn, I imagine. I know you are because
Yes.
we're LinkedIn together.
LinkedIn. I'm mar.mindset on Instagram.
nice.
I didn't know what else to call myself. I was Yoga with Mar for a long time, but I don't really teach anymore. So I'm like, what is it? I was like, mar.mindset. It's like, okay, we're doing it.
That's good. I like that. That's very good. Well, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
It's been a lovely conversation.
This is fun.